This super easy 2-row repeat is a lightweight shell stitch. It's breezy and textural, and it's great for summer and early fall projects. It also looks great in lots of different yarn weights. Like this one, this yellow one, is done in a light 4-weight yarn, and this one is in a bulky 5-weight yarn. It's also one of those stitch patterns that looks beautiful on both sides. For this tutorial, we will be using the Lion brand Heartland yarn, which I love this yarn. This is one of the first yarns I used when I learned to crochet. This is a 4-weight yarn. It's acrylic, and this is the colorway Grand Canyon. Now, this yarn calls for a 6mm hook. It's printed very small there. I will be using a 5mm loops and threads aluminum hook. I generally prefer a tighter crochet, so that is why I'm using a smaller hook, but if you prefer a looser stitch, then by all means use a larger hook. For this stitch, we will start with a slip knot. So to make a slip knot, you cross the yarn over itself, grab the piece underneath, and pull it through. Place it on your hook. And for this stitch, we will be chaining in a multiple of 7 plus 2. So feel free to chain as many as your project requires in a multiple of 7 and then add 2 at the end. For this sample, I will be chaining 37, which is a multiple of 7, 35 plus 2. I'll meet you at the end of the row. So here we have chained 37, and we're going to start our first of 2 repeat rows. I will be working into the back bumps of this foundation chain for the first repeat row, but if you prefer, feel free to work directly through the chains. There is no hard and fast rule. Everybody just do what you like. We're going to start our first repeat row with a chain of 2. Now this counts as your first half double crochet, kind of, just in your head. I know it's not a half double crochet, but count it as your first half double crochet in this row. Now counting that, we're going to place a double crochet in the 7th stitch from your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You should have something that looks like this. Now we're going to continue making our first shell in this same stitch you just worked into. So we'll put 2 more double crochets into this stitch. Then we're going to chain 1 and put 3 more double crochets into this exact same stitch, and you will see what you'll get is a very pretty shell. That's your first shell. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip 6 chains and do it all over again. Now the tricky thing here is to make sure that you don't miscount the chains in between. You see underneath, this is the stitch we just worked into here, right here, and we're going to make sure we count the next stitch as one of the stitches we're skipping. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in this stitch we're going to place a double crochet. The first row is always such a fiddly row. If if you're working into a foundation chain. And we're going to do the same thing in this stitch. Look, I've pulled it all out of whack. But we're going to place 2 more double crochets, then chain 1 and place 3 more double crochets into that same stitch to make our second shell. All right, now you should have 2 shells. And we're going to keep going across our row just like this, and we're going to skip 6 stitches in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to go into that one right there. Again, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, now we have 3 shells. This stitch pattern is really satisfying because it comes together really quickly and it has a shape really quickly. Sometimes you do these stitches and things are a little bit blobby for the first few rows. Next, we're going to do the same thing, skip 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to go into the 7th one with a double crochet, well, 3 double crochets, chain 1 and 3 double crochets. Now you have 4 shells. We're going to keep going. We're almost at the end of the row, so we're going to skip 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to work into this one. 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, all in that same stitch. Now you have 4 more stitches at the end of this row. Obviously not enough to skip 6 and do another one. So we're going to skip 3 and we're going to place 1 half double crochet in that very last stitch. So half double crochet in that last stitch. And that is the end of your first repeat row. If you've done 37 stitches like I have, you will have 5 shells. But obviously, if you've done a longer foundation chain, you will have more shells. So you have shells, skip 6, shells, skip 6, shells, skip 6, etc., etc. To start the second repeat row, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that chain 4 counts as a treble crochet in your second row. I know it's not a treble crochet, but we're going to count it as a treble crochet, and we're going to turn our work. Now we're going to chain 2. So what you have is a treble crochet or a fake treble crochet, and then you have a chain 2, and we're going to work into that chain space at the top of every shell. So that space that you left with the chain on top of every shell. And what we're going to do in the first one is we're going to double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, all in that chain space at the top of that first shell. So you have something that looks like this. Now we're going to chain 3, and we're going to skip over all this stuff in the middle, and we're going to work again into the top of the next shell into that chain space. So it's a double crochet right in that chain space, chain 2, whoops, chain 2, and double crochet right back into that chain space. I keep on dropping my yarn. Next, we're going to chain 3. Again, skip all that stuff in the middle and work directly into the chain space at the top of the next shell. Double crochet right into that chain space, chain 2, and double crochet right back into that chain space. Now chain 3, skip all the stuff in between those two shells and work directly into that chain space at the top of the next shell. Double crochet into the chain space, chain 2, and then another double crochet into that chain space, chain 3, skip all the stuff in between and work directly into the top of the chain space, top of the shell, chain space in that last shell, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet right back into that chain space. Now chain 2, and we're going to find the last stitch, which is right here in the previous row, and we're going to treble crochet into that last stitch. Okay, so that is actually the end of the 2-row repeat. Don't worry, we're going to do a few more rows together because even though it comes together nicely, it doesn't really look like anything now. To start row 3, which is our first repeat row repeated, we're going to chain 2, which counts as the first half double crochet in that row, and we're going to turn our work. Now we're going to work directly into that chain 2 space in the V-stitch you just made at the top of all the shells in row 1. So we're going to work directly into that giant chain 2 space. And we're going to repeat row 1, so we're going to put 3 double crochets right in that chain space. The yarn barf is here. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to put 3 more double crochets right in that chain space. So we're building the shells in these chain 2 spaces. So that is what that looks like. Now we're going to skip right into the next V-stitch and work right into that chain 2 space. So we're going to put 3 double crochets, building a shell, chain 1, 3 double crochets, all in that chain 2 space in that V-stitch. Okay, now you have 2 more shells. We're going to keep going. We're going to find that next V-stitch and work into that chain 2 space, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. We're going to find the next V-stitch and work into that chain 2 space, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. And then we're going to find the next V-stitch, this is the last one, in my second row. And we're going to go in, right in that chain 2 space, and do 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. And to end that row, we don't just end there because we have this little bit hanging off. Remember we did that chain 6 below, and there was a chain 2, and then there was a imaginary treble crochet for the first 4 chains. We're going to count to the 3rd chain, so 1, 2, 3, and we're going to place a half double crochet right in that 3rd chain. And that is a repeat of your row 1. It looks prettier and prettier as you go along. Now we're going to do a repeat of the row 2 as our row 4. So remember we start off with chain 4, which is our imaginary treble crochet. We'll turn our work. Now we're going to chain 2. And we're going to work directly into that chain 1 space at the top of the first shell. So we're going to double crochet, chain 2, double crochet right back into that same chain space to create that V-stitch. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Skip all the stuff in between and work directly into the top of the next shell into that chain space with a V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Now we'll chain 3, skip all the stuff in between, and work into the top of the next shell. Double crochet into that chain space, chain 2, double crochet. Chain 3, find the next shell, find that chain space, and work double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that chain space. Now chain 3, find the last shell. Well, this is the last shell in my sample, but keep going until the end of yours. I'm going to go into that chain space in the last shell, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Now to end this row, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to treble crochet into the stitch right after the shell. And this is what we have after row 4. Let's take a look at the other side. It is super simple, 2-row repeat. I just love the symmetry and the lightness of the stitch. I usually don't like crochet stitches that have so many holes in them, but because of the shell, there's a real structure here that holds it all together. This would be beautiful as a blanket, as a scarf, or even as part of a sweater. And if I was doing a blanket with this, I would definitely put a border around it, or I would potentially start it with a few rows of single or double crochet just to give it a bit more structure down here. and then I would create a border on both sides just to give it a little bit of extra structure. Thank you so much for watching this crochet stitch tutorial. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.